touch the ball, right? They haven't stopped them 2 plays in a row. Oh, boy. You know, if there's one guy you can't forget about, that's him.
A little playoff series for the Toronto Raptors as they face the Atlanta Hawks for the second time in 3 nights at home. In the first one, it was an offensive shootout in which the Raptors won. In this one, it was the Hawks who dominated on both ends of the floor while the Raptors just sat back and watched.
There was getting a lot of easy ones tonight. Wide open threes, some rolls. That we just got to figure that out and help each other out there on the floor.
The Raptors kept it close in the first half thanks to Scottie Barnes and Jakob Poeltl, who combined for 19 points in the first half, dominating in the interior. But the Hawks carved out an advantage very quickly. Offensive rebounding.
They got 16 offensive rebounds for 24 points, second chance points. It's hard to have any pace when they have so many opportunities there. We got to the free throw line quite a bit, with 25 times to the free throw line. We missed 11 free throws tonight. So it's hard to play that way, to create that pace on offensive end. In order to play with pace, you got to get stops and you got to get rebounds. And we did not do a good enough job tonight with that.
Besides the offensive rebounding, the Raptors couldn't carve out advantages anywhere else, losing the three-point battle by 18 points, and while they took 25 free throws, they only made 14 of them. Poor shooting from both lines continues to plague the Raptors this season, and tonight it was a thorn in their side once again.
Whenever time you have a chance, we're doing it in practice. We're trying to get guys to the free throw line, multiple players, whole team together. We're trying to practice it and to put the pressure on the importance of those as well. And, we're just one game we're okay, next game we drop off.
And so the Raptors lost 125-104. The Hawks were led by Trae Young, who absolutely dominated, scoring 29 of his final 38 points in the second half, carving up the Raptors' pick and roll coverage and scorching them any chance he got. The only silver lining for the Raptors tonight, as it has been in most of their games, is Scottie Barnes. Barnes put up 23 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, and 2 blocks on 60% shooting. It felt like Barnes was the only one to show up offensively for the Raptors tonight. The only other player to take more than 10 shots for them was Pascal Siakam, who took 11. As far as minor tweaks go, Darko Rajakovic continues to adjust his rotation, which means that there might be more changes on the horizon.
Tonight, we wanted to match Dennis minutes with Trae Young. I thought in the game 48 hours ago that he did a solid job on him defensively, and we wanted to match his minutes and his sub pattern there, and that tweaked our rotations there as well. And it was also a good opportunity for us to see what it looks like, what the lineups with Dennis in the second unit look like, what Malachi looks with the starters there, what Scottie looks playing some different minutes there. So just continuing to learn our team.
Now, there were a number of areas tonight where the Raptors struggled. Missed free throws, missed three-point shots, offensive rebounds, but the area that continues to be a glaring issue over this last stretch is their defense, and that is what we have to talk about once again in the film room. So the Raptors struggled again at the point of attack, guarding Trae Young. They did so in the first game as well. I thought their pick and roll coverage in the first half was really poor against Trae, but then they went to switching, and Precious Achiuwa, OG Anunoby, they did a much better job against Trae in that second half of the first game, and the Raptors pulled out a win. In this one, they were kind of all over the place with what they were trying to do. They threw out a zone for a little bit, which Trae carved up. They threw out some, they overhelped in a lot of scenarios that Trae just carved up. Even in the pick and rolls, they went under on some screens, which Trae just carved up. Trae did everything to this team in the second half. He just dominated. I think a big reason was Dennis Schroeder just couldn't keep up, which is a surprise because Dennis Schroeder is a guy who in the playoffs was chasing around Steph Curry on screens and chasing around Jamal Murray on screens and was tasked with guarding a lot of tough defenders for the Lakers last season. And so far, to be fair, this year he's done a really, really good job. As of late, he has slipped a little bit defensively. Let's get into it. So you guys wanted off-ball Trae. The Hawks and every Hawks fan in the world wanted off-ball Trae. The Raptors were negating drives throughout this game. They were really pinching in to try to negate dribble penetration and just limit the amount of drives to the lane that the Hawks could get, but it opened up a lot of open threes for them, and this is Dennis Schroeder helping way off of Trae Young. Trae makes him pay with a three-point shot. This time, off-ball Trae once again. He gets looped around this screen, and again, Dennis Schroeder gets lost around the action. Really wide open shot for Trae Young. This time, the Raptors go to a zone, and Trae just has a high screen and roll. Raptors, and look at. I guess this is the one element of the zone that is tough. When you don't have any resistance in the middle of the floor because you're playing a 2-3 zone, and just a simple high screen and roll is enough to essentially get into the teeth of the defense. That is not the point of a zone. And pretty much all night, the Raptors didn't have much resistance for Trae at the point of attack. This high screen and roll, he gets a pretty easy layup. Good seal by Clint Capella. This time, it's a Spain pick and roll, and the Raptors just blow the coverages here. Trae gets a wide open lane to the basket. And look, Trae has unlimited range, and that there's no question. But the fact that he was cooking the Raptors and they were comfortable with him taking these shots wide open, that's tough. On this defensive play, Dennis Schroeder chases over, but they miscommunicate the switch, and Precious is late to get to the contest. This time, Schroeder goes way under, and Trae just launches from 35 feet. I mean, he was feeling it at this point, to be fair, but yeah, you just can't go under on a Trae Young screen. And just to kind of reiterate the point about them pinching in on drives to limit their dribble penetration, the Hawks dribble penetration, this time Pascal pinches in. But the thing is, you shouldn't be pinching in on the strong side of the ball in the first place. That's a big pet peeve of mine. And against the guy who just scored 16 points against you in the third quarter in Trae Young. Wide open three for him as the Hawks extend their lead. And this is just a final play, really no resistance from Schroeder as Trae gets downhill for the floater. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That is how the Raptors lost that game, although there were a lot of reasons they lost that game. Offensive rebounds, maybe you could argue that if the Raptors didn't lose the offensive rebounding battle, the second chance points battle, the way that they did, they could figure out a way to carve out an advantage. Maybe they'd get out in transition more. Maybe they'd be able to score in transition more. Yeah. Maybe they should have made their free throws more, which is a recurring issue for this team. And ultimately, there are a lot of reasons that they lost this game, but their defense continues to be a really, really sore subject, if you will. It just seems like they are not able to have any sort of resistance at the point of attack. I think that has to do with Schroeder's play as of late. I also think it has to do with the team in general not really buying into the defensive system, if you will, and not really trusting each other. There's been quotes recently between Pascal, Darko, and all those guys about communication and how important communication is. I think communication also is trust to a certain extent. It's being able to trust in your defensive scheme, trust in the rotations, trust that the help is there. I think Pascal mentioned that as well. And for the most part, there isn't any of that right now. And I'm not sure what the Raptors have to do to adjust that. Part of it is effort, part of it is just buy-in, and part of it is committing to something because the Raptors were all over the place as an identity on the defensive end tonight. They just didn't know what coverages they wanted to use, and when they did lean into something, Trae Young just carved them up. So that's how they lost, ladies and gentlemen. They're facing the Hornets next, maybe a chance to redeem themselves against a team that they lost to last week. We'll see. They are down 5 games under 500. The vibes right now aren't excellent, to be honest with you, with the Raptors. Yes, they had a good win against the Hawks that lifted their spirits momentarily, but for the most part, this team is sort of in a limbo. And, especially with December 15th just happening, most, contracts, if you will, in the NBA are now available for trade. It's sort of an unofficial beginning of the trade deadline rumors and all that type of stuff. We'll see. The Raptors will no doubt be heavily involved in that. And I'm not going to go ahead and rehash it every single time, but to be honest with you, it's getting difficult to explain the number of ways that the Raptors are losing these games. It's pretty simple. Their defense isn't as good as you'd expect it to be. Their offense isn't able to carry them through these games. And when their offense is able to carry them through these games, they're sort of escaping And like by the nail of their whatever that saying is, I'm blanking out right now, but they're escaping with these wins when their offense is carrying them because their defense isn't good enough right now. And it's surprising because their defense was supposed to be something they were hanging their hat on, something they could rely on, their calling card this year, and that just hasn't been the case. So Raptors lose. We'll see what happens next. This next month is going to be super, super important for the core, the future of this team. And we'll be there to cover it all, ladies and gentlemen. If you are interested in NBA talk at all outside of the Toronto Raptors, we also host the Objective Basketball Podcast on SDPN Sports. You can tap into it on all streaming networks. You can go ahead and watch it on our YouTube channel. It is pretty dope, if I say so myself. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.